When people often drift towards you to offload their secrets and worries, while you are left wondering why they always perceive you as the perfect person to come to. When you surprisingly discern how people around you seem to imitate certain aspects of your routine, habits, and lifestyle in your presence or absence. When you realize how your presence often intimidates those around you, even without trying, you should understand that these are not coincidences. These folks are only responding to your frequency. It is a spiritual dance. Before pressing further, you ought to understand that you are not just your physical pile of flesh. Aside your body, you have a spirit and a mind. Though these two immaterial parts of your existence can't be seen with the natural eyes, still, most of what controls the affairs of humanity in this third-dimensional realm springs forth from the immaterial world. For clarity, the spiritual and mental planes are inseparable, and these are the realms of cause. The physical realm, where your five senses are limited to, is only the realm of effect. Influence here in this world is a spiritual and mental affair. And in this video, I'd be dissecting the science behind spiritual influence. The essence of curating this content is to bring you clarity on how your spiritual frequency is presently permeating every corner of your environment and silently wielding the thread of your destiny into the tapestry of existence, whether you are conscious of it or not. Stay with me. From the lens of the Hermetic philosophy, we could easily decode that everything is in motion, nothing rests, everything vibrates at specific frequencies. Though there are over 7 billion humans in this world, yet our minds do not vibrate at similar frequencies. Likewise, individually, we all are not operating from the same spiritual dimension. In all of these, there lies one constant truth. Beings with low mental and spiritual frequencies are bound to feel drawn and would always gravitate towards those vibrating at higher frequencies. This is a silent, spiritual law that shapes your interactions with other mortals in this realm. God is a spirit, and from his scriptural title, the Most High, we understand that he's the most high spirit entity in the spirit world. This implies that his vibration corresponds with a frequency that is surely beyond our mental acuity, the most high frequency. And just as God vibrates at a specific frequency, so are there angels of different hierarchies and vibrations, such as archangels, cherubim, seraphim, and other angelic beings. Also, there are many other spirit entities that are beyond our imagination, and they inhabit different cosmic realms or spiritual dimensions. Trying to know the names, nature, and texture of all kinds of spirit entities in the immaterial world can be best likened unto the need of a man who was born deaf, but still stubbornly craves to understand the rhythm of a song. Making effort to grasp the entire mystery of the spirit world is nothing but an arrogant and egoistic pursuit, a fruitless endeavor. But one thing that we know for sure is that spirit entities, both good and evil, they vibrate at different frequencies, which is why they are hierarchical in nature. And their different rates of vibration determines the spiritual dimensions that they have access to. And just as all of these are the realities of the spirit world, so do we humans in this realm silently operate. As above, so below. We are not just physical beings. What separates us from spirit beings is our ability to exist both in the physical and spirit realms simultaneously. As long as you are breathing in this world, there's a spirit inside of you, and the spiritual dimension your indwelling spirit inhabits presently would surely determine how you are perceived by other mortals, who are also spiritual beings, having a physical adventure through a body, just like you are doing too. The dimension where your indwelling spirit inhabits would always have a ripple effect on both your perception of reality, level of consciousness, your spiritual resolve, and the magnetic allure of your electromagnetic field, which is your aura. And since humans are bound to always perceive you from the lens of your internal state of vibration, your spiritual frequency would definitely shape your total experience with other mortals in the external world. This explains why you see certain individuals who people are always inherently compelled to do their bidding, even without any iota of force. This is spiritual influence. Lower frequencies are bound to always gravitate towards higher frequency. As I've stated earlier, it's a silent spiritual law. The allure of the cosmic realm that your indwelling spirit inhabits at the moment is shaping not just how you are perceived by others, but your entire destiny. Though there are certain scarce chosen individuals who were given access to specific spiritual dimensions right from birth by God, who we mortals obviously can't question. Yet, once humans are born into this world, and they become conscious of the external world via their five senses, they eventually get lost in the conditioning of the physical world alone, without having the privilege of connecting to their infinitude and ascending into higher spiritual dimensions as they ought to. In the 3D world, humans are programmed from infancy to carry implanted fears, traumas, insecurities, guilt, lustful desires, and limiting beliefs all their life, which keeps them spiritually and mentally trapped in a very low state of consciousness. Thanks to the system, the media, celebrities, and other bodies that have conspired to keep feeding the consciousness of humanity with everything they need to stay glued to a mundane frequency. But what many don't seem to get is that a soul that lives with implanted fears and unresolved issues that are kept beneath the shell of the ego would always remain susceptible to spiritual manipulations from unclean spirit entities, and also mental manipulation from other immoral mortals that vibrate at higher frequencies in this realm of matter. And on top of that, those that have blindly accepted the programming of this 3D world would eventually stay attached to excessive pleasure, material things, achievements, possessions, money, and status, which would definitely keep them grounded on a low frequency, because mentally they only see other earthlings through the lens of comparison and competition, and also thoughts of how to feed their unending lustful desires without any iota of control or sense of purpose keeps their minds busy. These are the souls that live in what we could refer to as the third dimension. And even though such individuals could keep stacking up lots of cash, or they keep amplifying their achievements and possessions, still, their aim isn't to use these gathered resources as tools for contributing their own unique quota to the grand existential puzzle of humanity. Rather, these resources are used as weapons of competition against the illusory avatar of those around them who appear to have more than they do. But a life like this is merely an echo of a silent fear that confirms that indeed these individuals, most of humanity, still live in a state of spiritual comatose, and their spiritual resolve is indeed as lean as a broomstick. On the other side, the awakened soul whose thoughts transcends the frequency of fear, guilt, shame, pride, lust, greed, and illusion vibrates high. But this does not happen in a day. The moment a soul wakes up from its deep slumber, Those around such individual would witness the internal shift from one state of consciousness to another. They would realize how this person who they once knew so well now seems like a stranger in a familiar body. Soon, old relationships begin to end naturally as frequencies no longer match. Social gatherings that used to feel like a safe zone now seems like a weird place to be. Even the taste buds of the soul that is transitioning also begins to shift. And this does not only imply their taste for food, but also their habits, taste for music and other kinds of entertainment also begins to change, because they now realize how the frequencies transmitted through the sounds they once loved so much no longer appeal to their heightened state of consciousness. Though they occupy the same pile of flesh, yet the soul that is ascending into higher spiritual dimensions beyond the conditioning of the 3D world slowly wears a totally different identity. This explains the words of Jesus concerning the archetype behind spiritual awakening and ascension. He stated in John 12, verse 24, "Except a corn of wheat falls into the ground and die, it abides alone. But if it dies, it then brings forth much fruit." When a soul begins to detach from the illusion of reality, they are not just waking up, they are dying to the person who they once were. They are taking off the costumes that the external world have glued to their skin from the day they first opened their eyes to this material world. And this is just spiritual mechanics. The price for ascending into a higher dimension in the immaterial realm is nothing but death to the identity of the person who lived in the previous one. This shift would be felt internally by the soul ascending beyond the limits of the material plane, and it's never an easy ride. Rather than paying the price for spiritual ascension, most of humanity would prefer to remain asleep. But for those that are bold enough to stomach the energetic friction they encounter as they ascend, eventually their intuition becomes clear and heightened with time. Dreams also become very vivid, and while consciousness expands internally, their aura amplifies externally too. Here comes a silent truth about humans that many can barely stomach. We don't see people for who they are. We only see who we are in them. No one sees you the way you see yourself. Everyone sees you as they see themselves. For instance, when you hear someone say they are broke, you could either perceive them as one who must be suffering, both financially and emotionally, because they definitely can't afford the things that would make them feel accepted by the external world. Or you could also perceive them as one who must be enjoying their life regardless of the size of their pocket, since money is just a fraction of what brings happiness. Either ways, the way you perceive the broke individual's current state is not exactly how they see themselves. You're only seeing a mere projection of a broke version of yourself in them. And it's even deeper than this. What the unawakened often call reality is nothing but an illusion. When we come across humans on a daily basis, we either see a version of ourselves that we've outgrown in them, or we see a higher version of who we are yet to become in them. We also see a reflection of our present level of consciousness in others, but that's a topic for another day. Now that you are spiritually awake, and your mental and spiritual vibrations resonates at a high frequency, when the unawakened see you, their souls would recognize you. Your presence alone would always trigger something in them. And this is because you embody the very identity of that person they could have been if they were bold enough to face their unresolved issues and outgrow their limitations. You effortlessly disturb their illusions, even without trying. This is what Carl Jung called shadow projection. your light easily make their shadows obvious. But these souls won't respond to that energetic friction that your presence ignites in them the same way. First, there are those that are ready to outgrow their mental and spiritual chains. These are the souls that know that indeed they need to evolve beyond their shell. These are the spiritually hungry. Regardless of the frequency mismatch that they feel within, their spirit would helplessly feel drawn to you. You embody a truth they desire. You inspire them without trying. The freedom you have, they crave too. These folks would embrace your light, even though it uncovers their shadows. They would come around because they find a peaceful warmth in your presence. They feel safe around you, and they don't know why. Well, they are only engaged in a spiritual dance, not a physical one. It's the spiritual atmosphere that surrounds you that they are drawn to, not your physical attributes. And mind you, you won't only have unawakened souls responding to your frequency this way. Even those that are awake but are yet to ascend into the dimension where your indwelling spirit inhabits would also feel drawn to you. This is a clear interpretation of the words of Jesus in the parable of the mustard seed, where he mentioned that the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a mustard seed, and even though it's so little, the moment it begins to grow, it eventually becomes a large tree that birds of the air would come around seeking shelter in its branches. I believe you already know that the kingdom of heaven is within you. Anyways, these birds of the air signifies those that would effortlessly gravitate towards you, all because they crave a slice of the peaceful atmosphere that surrounds you. If you find them imitating your habits and lifestyle, it's because they trust your perception of reality so well that they believe, probably, if they do the same things you do, they could also match that frequency you're on. But there are also those that thrive on comparison, though they are still in a deep slumber. But these souls have already mastered the art of hiding all their turmoil behind the ego. Whenever these folks see you, they would immediately feel intimidated and threatened by your presence. They could have more than you do. They could look better than you do. But it's your spiritual frequency they are responding to, not your physical attributes. These folks do not intend to evolve beyond their shell, and this is cause the ego fears spiritual evolution. Though they see a higher version of themselves in you, but they don't know how to become that person. I mean, they fear the path that leads to the kind of freedom that you have, even though their soul silently craves it so badly. Your light feels like confrontation to them, and they don't want that. Rather than embracing your light, they would try to be defensive and hostile. They would call you names just to suit the need of the ego, the need to understand everything. Behind closed doors, they would say you were weird, sociopathic, and dangerous. And in your face, they would give you different facial expressions that affirm what they feel inside. You won't even have to be told that they resist your presence, because such individuals would be quick to amplify your little mistakes and throw toxic words at you to feel relieved. And beyond this, some would even go as far as orchestrating events that would make you lose your poise and descend into their own frequency. And others would employ witchcraft powers to get to you, just to ensure they make you feel the energetic friction they feel inside too. It sounds crazy, but that's the world we live in. Most humans are living with scattered minds, and your presence alone makes it obvious. You are exposing the inadequacies that they are used to hiding behind a mask called the ego. And now, their defensive mechanism seems weak in your presence. This is exactly why hostility would be the potent weapon that they would fashion against you. But regardless of the nature of their resistances, whether physical or spiritual, you should understand that they are only helping you. Yes, they are helping you ascend into higher dimensions of light, but your ascension would be largely dependent on how you respond to their various hostile defenses. First, when you respond to their physical hostility with love, empathy, and a clear understanding of the source of their projections, your actions would have a ripple effect on not just these souls themselves, but also those that would witness how you dissolve such resistances. Your diplomatic response would stir up questions in these souls, and such questions would linger in their hearts till they finally find illumination that would lead them on the path towards freedom from their mental and spiritual shackles too. Mind you, those that carry so much darkness in them would not be satisfied with your initial response. In fact, when you dissolve their hate with love, they would be triggered to even resist the healing pill that you offer them. But regardless of the hostile, energetic impressions that their actions leave in your heart, as long as you remain indifferent and you envelop that resistance, just like water would always do to rocks, your spiritual resolve would be definitely strengthened, and so would your spiritual clarity become sharper. Also, at certain moments, you would feel spiritually drained for no reason. You could be alone, and then you feel like you've just finished running a marathon, even while idle. This is one of the symptoms of a spiritual attack. That's the manifestation of spells that certain individuals are casting on you in an attempt to dim your light. But that darkness is only a portal that leads to a higher dimension of light and spiritual clarity. That hostile energy you feel should be transmuted through prayers, long walks, exercise, high-frequency music, cold showers, and the likes. And eventually, when you master the art of transmuting these hostile energies, your intuition only heightens, your dreams become very vivid, the magnetic allure of your aura strengthens, your spiritual resolve intensifies, and so would your frequency amplify. Now you see why I said they are only helping you when they resist your light. Anyways, we humans are wired to always see ourselves in others. Whether you are awake or asleep, Gautama Buddha or Krishna, this is the human nature. But the beauty of spirituality is that even though you encounter those vibrating at lower frequencies, since you already know your peak frequency, rather than getting dragged into their lower states of consciousness unconsciously, you would recognize their frequency and be compelled to respond with empathy, while you simultaneously stay grounded on your own peak frequency, even when you encounter energetic resistances from these same souls. And as you do this, you would only effortlessly absorb them into your own light. Light would always win. Their shadows that your presence expose, they become compelled to face in solitude, till they are drawn into your light. This is the science behind spiritual influence, but it's even deeper than this. Beyond those that you encounter physically, there are also those that your mental vibration would influence from a mile away, and this is how this physical realm operates. Every soul that have once influenced your perception of reality with their words, music, ideas, thoughts, and creations were able to do so, all because their thoughts came from states of consciousness higher than yours before they were crystallized into form. This is the same way the thoughts that flow into your consciousness as you ascend spiritually would only get to influence those that their mental and spiritual frequencies resonates with yours, and also light seekers that vibrate at lower frequencies. For clarity, when you speak, your words were once thoughts. When you write, those letters were once thoughts. When you create, your creations were once thoughts. And your thoughts only corresponds with your state of consciousness, or the dimension where your indwelling spirit inhabits while you were inspired or thinking. And those that your crystallized thought forms would get to influence are those that are on the same frequency as you, cause they would feel understood and seen. Also, to those that their mental and spiritual frequencies vibrate lower than yours, as long as their indwelling spirit seeks light, every crystallized form of your thoughts would seem like initiation into a higher dimension of light to them. This is a spiritual principle. This is why ancient texts that were captured by writers who were plugged into high spiritual dimensions still awaken souls today. This is why songs that were created from higher dimensions still pierce through the souls of certain listeners centuries after they were created. This is why the parables and proverbs of Jesus still brings light to light seekers 2,000 years later. Even without seeing the individual, the state of consciousness or spiritual dimension from whence the Creator crystallized their thoughts into form permeates the consciousness of souls from afar. This is not just creativity, this is spiritual influence. But here's a very important message that you must pay close attention to. Not all awakened souls remain pure. Souls vibrating at high frequencies in a constant harmony with their spirit often become drunk with power and influence, to a point where they begin to perceive those that gravitate towards them as pawns that could be manipulated mentally for the sake of their own lustful and selfish benefits. When Jesus spoke about the parable of the sower, he described these souls as the seeds that fell into the midst of thorns. And these are the souls that the cares of this world eventually seduce out of alignment. The life of such mortals can be likened unto that of Icarus, who was instructed by his father Daedalus not to fly too close to the sun or too low towards the sea after he was given wings made of feathers and wax. But as soon as Icarus began to fly, he forgot his father's warnings and became intoxicated with the power he had received. He decided to fly too close to the sun, till the wax holding his wings together began to melt and caused him to drown in the sea after his fall. Such is the fate of those who attempt to abuse their spiritual influence. The wages of manipulating souls that vibrate at lower frequencies and look up to you as a beacon of light is the same as what Beelzebub got for manipulating angelic beings below his rank, as he also attempted to rebel against God and please his lust for influence and power. And that's spiritual death. For other folks out there that need to find this message, push the like button and share with those that you believe would need it.